There we go. Thank you, Gary Caulfield from XLam in Australia. I'm originally from Glasgow, so you could apologise. My English is not my first language. Suppose I've found a home in New Zealand and Australia post-Brexit. I'm now a bit of a refugee and I've got a Kiwi passport and probably won't head back anytime soon. I'll need to kind of put my glasses on and look at this and look at that. So we've got a plant in the top of the South Island, in Nelson, and we've got a plant in Albury-Wodonga, which is kind of halfway between Melbourne and Sydney. The Melbourne plant just opened last week, actually. I'm also a board member of Prefab Oz, so our CEO is here, so I have to give him a shout out. And I'm on the board of a WPMA in New Zealand, which is a Wood Processors Manufacturers Association. Great to hear the speeches from a development point of view, because from a manufacturer point of view, you know, we're the bottom of the food chain. We don't have huge budgets and whatnot, and we're very much at the end of the process. The title of this was kind of a holistic cost review. It might be retitled Cynical Cost Review from the Day in the Life of a Poor Manufacturer. Being relatively, I suppose, new, and we've got lots of new people and loads of structural engineers and CAD guys that sit on big rubber balls and stuff and don't use chairs and desks that go up and down. You know, the office is plastered with sayings. They seem to be going through a phrase, a period of Albert Einstein at the moment. And all these quotes, obviously, they bear some reference at the moment to the kind of state of the industry, and from what I've heard in the last few days, you know, Australia and New Zealand's in a bad way. Britain's definitely in a real mess. Nick's just moved home at the right time, I think back to the UK from Singapore. And you guys might be in the same position. So there's all these new phrases come through that the guys love, but personally I kind of always talk around, you know, what would Albert Einstein say about CLT? And I think he would say this. He would say that new technology and old thinking provides you with a very expensive new product. and that's what we tend to get quite a lot of the time. That's a function of the industry and how the industry's grown up. Because designers, you know, are quite reluctant to specify a product that wasn't available, and, you know, what kind of idiot's going to shell 40 million out the pocket to build a CLT plant when no bugger's buying it, you know? So you've got that kind of catch-22, but we're kind of quite lucky with a couple of investors that set up the business, and at the right old age of 64, I think poor old Robin got a knock in the head and decided to open a CLT plant just the year before he retired. And a lot of the people coming into the industry in Australia and New Zealand, we find you know, they're from the timber industry, and the timber industry sells in a certain way through a certain distribution chain, and it's a commodity. But, you know, what we've heard about the last few days is everything's about a project. It's not about a commodity. And the commercial construction market buys in a certain way. And the reality of life is the timber industry doesn't know these customers, and it doesn't know how to sell them. And the industry kind of looks a bit like this. I'll say in Australia and New Zealand, we've got all these people are in a kind of lineal fashion. They don't talk to each other. We tend to get involved quite early on directly with clients, about 75% of the time. That works quite well to the bank insists the project manager's employed, and then none of us are allowed to talk anymore. And the traditional tender model is very old, very antiquated. We know really well, you know, the pros and cons of it, but it's a race to the bottom. You know, it doesn't promote partnership, doesn't promote working together, and what we've heard the last few days is all about collaboration. That, you know, in a very collaborative, communication-centric model. My wife usually laughs out loud when I talk about communication. She finds it quite ironic. But, you know, when we all get together in the room early on with that, we've all got the one goal. We're all trying to achieve the best. We want to get rid of waste. We want to maximise what we're doing with the timber. We want to sort out what we're doing with transport. We want to manufacture in the most efficient efficient manner, and we really want to get to a point where our entry cost is the same as the exit cost, so that the developer or the client on site's not hit with lots of variations. And what's starting to come through in some notable companies, B&K Structures has been talked about a lot the last few days, Lend-Lease, Design Make, as well as Strong Build, is that they're really trying to put everything under the one basket. This is slowly coming through in New Zealand, however. I've heard lots of definitions of BIM the last few days, but in our business it usually means that there's bits of information missing. And we're trying to sell into a variety of people. It's that 10-headed Hydra snake. Lots and lots of people can kill a project, and lots and lots of people don't really get how it works. It's great that the education is going, and the case studies are usually priceless. One of the big things about CLT and GlueLam, we've got a commodity product and we've got components, and there's some big differences between commodities and components. I'll not read them all out. I've got lots and lots of stuff to run through. We'll not read every slide. But the components, they're made to order, they're project specific, that you don't run to Bunnings or Homebase or Mitre 10 and buy these. We've got to make them for you. They're supplied direct. I won't even tell you our definition of DFMA in our office. And what are we trying to provide value for? It's the quality of what we do, that high-speed precision. We invest in CNC machines. We didn't always have a CNC machine. We've got some lightweight materials. It's safe. There's lots of inherent health and safety attributes for the project. It's clean. It's very, very fast. And it helps us out when there's scarcity of on-site labour. We tend to have to go through a process of it, is this project suitable for CLT? Does the layout meet it? What about the fire and acoustic plays a big part. We've spent, I don't know how many millions of dollars on acoustic tests and fire tests over the years. So we've got, is the project suitable, but then is the CLT cost effective for it? And we go through these questions all the time, and I spend my time flitting between Australia and New Zealand, but I always kind of enjoy and get a good laugh sitting in the office hearing the sales team when people phone in, because quite a lot of the first question is how much cheaper is it, and we usually say just hang up, don't speak to that guy. Or the next question is, can I get a square metre rate? And a guy says, well, sorry, is your horse and cart outside? Because the world's moved on from square metre rates. Oh, concrete and steel does this, and we can get away with saying it's the wrong number. And I need a price tomorrow, and we say, oh yeah, we'll phone you right back. And we forget to give them a number. So we do really love it when people turn up like this. I'm not plugging Arup, it was just the first drawing I found, actually. But when a client turns up like this is a really good place to start for us. Really good place to start. No preconceived ideas about what it's going to look like and how it's going to go through. What we do then try and do is we've got a process to go through ourselves. We've got to do some 3D modelling. We've got to do some 2D modelling and panelise the building. Work out all the panels and the panel shapes and try and get the commonality around it. We've got to try and nest it for how we're going to cut it. We've got to then program the CNC machine to cut it. We've got to figure out how we're going to load it, how we're going to transport it. What else? We've got to think about slings and the fixings. 30% of our business is supplying LVL, GlueLam and steel, wrap, building paper, insulation. Let's not forget, we're there to add value and reduce costs, so we really want to design the materials and the resources to suit the project. There's different grades of timber that we can use. Some dimensions are more costly than others. We go into the whole connection conundrum of whether we've got concealed or hidden fixings. And we must get everybody focused on designing to the resource. And let's not, the other kind of elephant in the room, I'm sorry if there's any architects here, but there's always a significant amount of cost added. This is one of our very early projects. The builder that installed this for me hasn't paid for a drink since. 55 panels, every panel different, every panel premium visual. What a nightmare, actually. However, it's for a tech guy, and this is where he sits and thinks. So this adds significant cost. It can be achieved, you know, and that great challenge that architects throw down to us every day, you know, they need to stop proving that the CNC can do anything. Because yes, it can do anything, but God, does it cost money to do it? So how actually do we cost the buildings? We'll get to some numbers at the very end, I'm afraid, but we'll try and keep it a bit light till we get there. So we have to do schedules and takeoffs, and we spend a lot of time marking up drawings. We spend a lot of time working out what material we're going to use and how we're going to do it. We're double checking the section sizes, the CAD complexity, the CNC time, and unfortunately every project's different. We really love getting involved early, and we tend to find that in our experience, Australia and New Zealand, nobody really charges for getting involved early, so that you can sit round the table as part of the team. It can be a bit disheartening that you find you're in a room full of consultants, they're all getting paid and you're not. I said to one client recently, he should get a discount for him from his engineer because he's learning. He's training on the job with us. Really, we're trying to figure out a lot of those key components early. At the end of the day, we just sell press time and machine time. That's all we do. So we really want to lock that in, because once an hour on the CNC machine's sold, we can't sell it to anyone else. And we need to provide that certainty. And we can give you some basic information from shop drawings, but it does take us time to do it. The whole point of what we're trying to achieve, and sorry, my experience kind of in the last 15 years has been off-site fabrication, off-site solutions. It's a while since I've been in commercial construction. So I push the prefabrication side of things. And the one thing that everybody forgets about you've got to create time to do the off-site manufacturing. So you can only do that when we're all in the same room and we're all quite engaged quite early. I've got a few case studies from a few projects we've completed to run through. John Stolen, if anybody heard John's talk earlier, he talked about Christchurch and what happened in Christchurch. Chris Moller, a very famous New Zealand architect here, he's the presenter of Grand Designs. He's quite a character, he's quite unique to work with. He designed this building, and so he gets off the plane from Wellington. He says, "Hey, we need to build this roof, Gary." And I'm going, "What?" You know, he's folded his airline ticket, and he borrowed the one from the two people sitting next to him as well, and folds his airline ticket and says, "Right, this is what we need to do." So you go, "Oh my God, I'd have rather had the blank bit of paper." But you know, in the next few hours, we've worked out some sizes. We've done a bit of some model on the building. We then progressed to a small scale model for the building, so we could figure out actually how we're going to build it. We do some test pieces, and then here we're into the finished building, which is pretty beautiful. The point about costs on this one is that it couldn't have been built traditionally. So when we stack up a CLT building in this case, or LVL glulam building in this case, against a CLT building, a concrete building, well, the concrete building couldn't be built because the ground out there is absolutely crud, you know. The hybrid was over budget, but the mass timber was under budget. It was finished on time, and at the end of the day, the community centre got a building they couldn't have otherwise been able to replace. Kaikoura District Council building, when I took over at XLam, I believe I stole the job from Nick Milestone, he told me earlier. The board said to me, "Can you analyse any buildings and see what latent risk we've got in jobs?" So I poured through all the jobs and did some analysis, and I was about to announce that I thought this was the building that we had some risk in. This was the week before handover, and then the day before handover, a 7.8 earthquake hit Kaikoura, very, very shallow earthquake, just down the road. This building is a mixture of CLT, there's some glulam, there's some LVL, there's some post-tension CLT panels in it as well. That's the outside. It's supposed to look like a cray basket for lobster basket for catching lobster. And what happened there with that 7.8 earthquake in the area around about was quite devastating. The best picture that appeared in the World News was these 3 poor cows. Stuck in the middle of nowhere, and there's the road up to the building. You can see the crack. Internally, on the left, is one of the holding down plates before the quake, and on the right is actually the same plate after the quake. And the paint didn't crack. In respect of cost, this was, in New Zealand we have some importance level to our buildings. This was designed as an IL3 building, however it performed as an IL4 building, and that was quite fortunate because the civil defence building fell down. And the civil defence chaps gave us a thumbs up. They quite liked the CLT building. Monash University Business School. This is a 3-storey extension on top of a 9-storey building. I quite like the name because it overlooks Caulfield Racecourse. There's a couple of pictures of it, the finished article. However, in respect of costs, when they looked at it, they could only do a 1-storey extension because of the existing structure, not the foundations, but the existing structure. However, in CLT, we got a 3-storey extension. We're a great site team, great designers, it worked really well, worked with the client. However, on the next project, they decided to go out to tender and tender it traditionally to a whole bunch of new people. They didn't out a whole bunch of new people, and the main contractor they picked was just a bit too traditional for my liking, so we're not doing the next building. Otago Polytechnic, actually, funny enough, I've seen it in a couple of slides earlier today. It's a student accommodation building, 5 and 4 stories on top of concrete. It's now open for the students. A mixture of LVL and CLT, a lot of bracketry. One of the things that we went through here with the structural engineer, here he designed these what we call castellated joints. He was thinking he was going to win every structural engineering award out when he worked out that how much ductility he could get in the connections here. One connection, and I'm not an engineer, this 500mm connection was the same as 800 screws. Fantastic. However, in my commercial mind, it means it's only worth the same as 800 screws. But these things took 5 hours on the CNC machine, which was $3,500. It was a really dumb solution that he decided not to take our advice on. A couple of other pictures. This job, we did a price. We had a whole load of items that we suggested to the client he should do. A lot of that advice the client decided was quite foolish and he didn't want to take up. One of the things we decided we should do was that he should mock up all these connection details pre-hand before we actually built the building. He declined, took 3 weeks to install these instead of 1 week that they had allowed per floor. And if we had done the mock-up, we could have ironed out all the tolerance issues that the builder encountered. These half-lap joints that you can see here, this is a castellated, lovely engineering castellated connection, and the floor slots in and it's got a half-lap joint. We recommended the half-lap joints were 80mm wide. The design team changed it to 160mm, which meant we had to turn the panel over to process it. So it added 6 weeks processing onto our time, which could have been avoided if we'd run with the engineering solution that we had. So I guess I'm trying to say when you were looking at cost versus value and cost of CLT versus cost of other materials, there's some ways to get some good wins and there's some ways to kind of ignore the wins and be foolish. We're doing a series of work for Housing New Zealand at the moment. Again, they were mentioned earlier today by John Stolan. We're doing 13 buildings for Housing New Zealand. They're a cookie cutter, so there is just a single module and it's multiplied a number of times depending on the site. Typically what's happening is the old housing stock for Housing New Zealand is 2 houses on a half-acre section. So we're demolishing 2 houses and we're building a series of apartments. Generally, most of these are single bedroom. Couple of pictures. But what we've been able to do here from the first job to the last job, through here we've actually extended this wall out here, which means we've deleted that steel post and we've reduced the thickness of that glulam beam. So we've kind of taken $2,000 out that floor and multiply that by, we've got a pipeline of 176 apartments with a minimum of 6 apartments. Multiply that out, it's a good saving per floor. One of the other, if I can go back up the way, one of the other things we've been able to do here is, you can just see here, there's a panel here, a panel there, panel there, panel here. There's a panel there, there's another panel goes to there, there's another panel here, and a panel there, and a panel there. And it always amazes us that we have this large format product that everybody wants to chop up into small pieces. So we've redesigned this, and it just meant an additional one additional holding down bracket for uplift, and we were able to change that to one solid panel instead of 6 lifts for the builder. It became 1 lift. Multiply that, 1 per floor, 3 floors times 176 buildings. I'll move on. So what we did with Housing New Zealand, a government run organisation, never the most intelligent of procurement. We're doing 13 buildings, this cookie cutter approach. Some of them have got 6 apartments, some have got 42. And the pilot scheme we did is 6 buildings. We're on building 5 at the moment. It was on a fixed price. However, we've now given them a price for the next 7, which takes us to 13, and it's a 19% cost reduction in the original structural price from building 1 to building 7, so they get that extra 19%. Interestingly enough, their driver was health and safety, on the basis that whenever they embark on a significant building programme, their accident statistics go through the roof. Building 1, we just did the CLT structure with no roof. Building 3, we've included the roof and included the wrap. Building 5, we're doing the roof, the wrap, and some pre-finished balconies. And our plan for building 13 is to deliver the building with all the panels completely finished. I'll just wrap up then. Line lease have been mentioned a few times. This is quite interesting. If you jump on YouTube, not very many people have done this and had a look. Jump on YouTube and play this video of the making of 40 Victoria Harbour. It's the one titled that. Now, Lend-Lease actually started a second project at the same time, and it's that site in the back. So there's 40 finished. There's the concrete one in the back. Look how far behind it is, and they both started on the same day. So it's, I think 1 minute 39 in. If you jump in and have a wee look, it's real good. If you want to show clients the benefits of CLT versus concrete, show them that video. There is some published stuff about costs, some good published stuff about costs out there. NMIT building, which is actually in Nelson, kicked off the mass timber movement in New Zealand. All that documentation's published. These presentations are available, so have a look at them. The WPMA in New Zealand we've not got any funding like WoodWorks or the WoodWorks in Australia. We've got some cash together, and we're doing a timber guide at the moment, and we're doing a quantity surveying guide. Andrew Dunn runs Wood Solutions in Sydney. He's run through a whole series of cost plans with a team of experts. James Fitzpatrick. This is funny, I just put this in. This is James's house. It's in Castle Craig, Upper Harbour, Sydney, overlooks the harbour. James calls it the Seed House. We call it the Starship Enterprise. It's just about finished. It's been 2 years of pain and turmoil. But Andrew Dunn pulled together this team of people. They've designed a concrete and a steel building. They've gone into a significant amount of detail. It's showing some good cost comparison between it. I think you just have to say, well, it was a timber thing written for timber people. So funny enough, timber came out on top. But there is some good data about the crews that were involved in the timescales that did it. And Andrew's working through a series of them. Double back to the CLT, us poor supply chain people at the bottom of the pond. You know, you'll find these CLT people, we really need to know what's going on out in the market so we can plan, because there is limited capacity. So you just need to make sure you engage early enough with us all. Please, if you've got one takeaway, just remember what Albert Einstein said in those unpublished memoirs that have just been found. Get the right team together as quick as you can. Steel and concrete thinking is not the same as timber thinking. It's really not. But design it so it could. I'm not saying it must. Just design it so it could be timber from day one. Make sure you've got simple connection details. Please don't be the architect that breaks the CNC machine. Do some mock-ups. Don't be afraid to work with in a close partnership. You'll not be taken advantage of. Well, not down in New Zealand anyway. Embrace the myth of competitive bidding. Make sure you've got good labour, etc. This is a precast timber stairwell we've just done in Queenstown. You know, the cost conundrum, work with everybody, trust everybody from the beginning, and then people can only lose your trust. Exploit any health and safety benefits. We send all our panels out pre-slung to a site, and then we went to visit this guy and discovered he'd had them tested and he was using them as harnesses. I go, God, I wish we'd thought of that. There's no easy button, there's no control out below, there's no shortcuts. Square pegs don't fit in round holes. Just remember, you've got to think about access, double handling, moisture, durability, samples, protection, and please don't forget to order the screws.